We are usually overly positive here on the Aussie Cousins Wrestling Show, but today let's try something different. Let's talk about some of the worst moments of the year in WWE. Whether it be a horrible injury, a high profile mistake, or just a really bad match, thankfully these haven't been as common as the better moments, which you'll soon also see if you subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. I'm Chris Apples and these are our top 10 worst moments of 2024 in WWE. Number 10, the large number of injuries. We will have a couple of specific injuries later on in this list, but it seems like there have been more wrestlers getting hurt than ever. Some of these horrible injuries we saw included Seth Rollins tweaking his knee during a complete nothing World Heavyweight title match against Jinder Mahal, Shotzi tearing her ACL right at the start of an NXT show in February, Asuka working through a knee injury in March that eventually saw her sidelined after Backlash, Dakota Kai having another stop and start year with a couple of injuries back to back, before finally coming back in November this year, Kairi Sane's eye injury in September, which could have been so much worse without the quick thinking of Bianca Belair, Ilya Dragunov tearing his ACL in a match against Gunther on a house show in Georgia, AJ Styles ligament strain in his foot in a match where he was actually supposed to have a kayfabe injury, Jade Cargill, who now, according to reports, appears to have a serious injury that forced her out of Survivor Series, and then of course the injuries to Bronson Reed, Jimmy Uso and Tonga Loa during the Survivor Series War Games match. We hope the best for all of these wrestlers. No one wants to see serious injuries keeping them from doing their jobs. Number 9, Tonga Loa's debut. At one of the best shows of the year, Backlash in Lyon, France, Kevin Owens and Randy Orton were having one hell of a good street fight against Tama Tonga and Solo Sikoa. And then Kevin Owens put Tama Tonga through a pile of chairs with a massive fisherman's buster off the top rope. Kayova rolled over for the pin and the guaranteed win, and then referee Dan Engler, more on him later, had to essentially roll out of the ring himself because the debuting Tonga Loa couldn't get out from under the ring in time to pull the ref. And while not the worst thing in the world, this was more humorous than anything and will be a sign of things to come from the not so good adopted son of Haku. Number 8, LA Knight wins Andrade versus Carmelo's feud. And see, that sentence won't make sense to those who didn't see what happened, but let's set the scene. Andrade and Carmelo were having a decent feud with a handful of good to very good matches against each other on the Blue brand. And then it was clear they were headed for a best of 7 series as they were tied up at 3 wins apiece. And then they had their Game 7 on the 25th of October edition of SmackDown, where, rather predictably, LA Knight was made the special guest referee. And the match was all about the megastar as he was in the ring with his US title around his waist and his sunglasses on for most of the match. And then after some accidental contact with LA Knight by both competitors, he took them both out with his BFT finisher and declared himself the winner. It was a horrible no contest, something that WWE has not been guilty of usually under the current creative team, and it was a deflating way to end the series. Number 7, CM Punk's injury. CM Punk made his in-ring return in a televised capacity as the 27th entrant to the Men's Royal Rumble match. He was booked strong in this match as he eliminated Dominic Mysterio and made it through to the Final 4. But it was an injury seemingly out of nowhere as he took Drew McIntyre's Future Shock DDT and tore his triceps in the process. And while he continued on in the match and eliminated Drew, as well as somehow getting Cody up for a go to sleep later on, Punk would be out for over 6 months of in-ring action after the event, meaning he missed out on Elimination Chamber in Perth, of course we had to add that in here at AC Dub, and probably a title match at WrestleMania 40. In a silver lining, the way they booked around his injury with the feud with Drew was absolutely incredible. Number 6, Damien Priest doesn't kick out against Seth Rollins. Damien Priest had his first World Heavyweight title reign after a sensational cash-in of his Money in the Bank briefcase at WrestleMania 40. And while he presented himself as a bigger star than before, his title reign was marred by some big issues. The worst of which coming at the Money in the Bank event in July. He and Seth Rollins were having a good match before Seth performed his superplex and Falcon Arrow combination after a couple of counters. Damien Priest was clearly either rocked or exhausted from this match and laid there taking the pin without kicking out, leaving the referee, Rod Zapata, no choice but to stop his own count to avoid completely ruining the cash-in attempt that was going to come later in the match from Drew McIntyre. Whatever happened to Damien, it was not a great look for the main event of a major PLE. Number 5, Rhea's injury forces her to vacate her title. Rhea Ripley continued her rise to becoming the biggest star in women's professional wrestling in 2024 as she took the Women's World Championship into WrestleMania 40. This was a really good match given the health issues both her and Becky Lynch were battling through going into it, and the Australian retained. Then on the next Raw event, she was attacked by Liv Morgan backstage and was thrown into a wall where she legitimately injured her AC joint in her shoulder. This would go on to keep her out of action for months. Rhea was forced to relinquish her title she had held for over a year on the next episode of Raw, and while it led to a fantastic feud against Liv Morgan, it was a horrible way to end what was a wonderful title reign. Number 4, Giovani Vincis booking. On the 22nd of April show, after another loss by Imperium to the New Day caused by Giovani Vinci, Ludwig Kaiser destroyed his longtime teammate and kicked him out of the group for good. Giovanni took some time away from the ring for a long period and was sent to SmackDown in the draft. And we didn't see him for several months until finally we had some vignettes in August showing the model gimmick for Vinci that was popular down in NXT coming back to our screens. And then he got beaten in 4 seconds in his return match to Apollo Crews. Then 2 weeks later, he was beaten in less than 2 minutes to Apollo Crews. How are we supposed to invest in someone who is so talented in the ring when he gets treated like this? Number 3, The Rock steals Cody's spot. Cody Rhodes eliminated CM Punk at the end of the Royal Rumble to win for the 2nd year in a row, and then immediately called his shot by pointing to Roman Reigns, who in turn responded back. All seemed like it was headed for Roman vs Cody Part 2 at WrestleMania 40, which had the fans incredibly hyped. And then, on the 2nd of February edition of SmackDown, Cody told the world he had sought counsel and he was going to give up his undisputed WWE Championship shot to The Rock. After the most awkward exchange between Cody and Dwayne, it was clear there was a major political play made by the biggest star in the world, and Cody was on the outer. Over the course of the next few weeks, this all sorted itself out into 2 huge main events. But in this moment, this was one of the worst situations to happen in 2024. Number 2, Raquel botches her return at Bad Blood. Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley were having a decent match at Bad Blood that was often more about the shenanigans of Dominic Mysterio in a shark cage. Then Dominic, rather impressively, picked the lock of the shark cage but then fell hanging upside down, causing Rhea to take him out with a kendo stick. In this moment, Raquel Rodriguez made her triumphant return and attacked Rhea. Only it wasn't very triumphant, and the referee, Dan Engler again, was right there, and after a lot of confusion, and probably a word from Gorilla, he was forced to throw the match out. It was a horrible way to end a match in one of the biggest feuds of the year. Number 1, Jimmy vs Jey Uso at WrestleMania 40. When Jimmy Uso cost his twin brother Jey the Intercontinental title against Gunther on the 19th of February Raw, it was soon to be official that the two of them would be having a grudge match at WrestleMania 40. And then the bell rang on night 1 of the biggest stage in wrestling, and the two of them put on a match that looked like they'd never even met before. There was almost no chemistry between one of the greatest tag teams of all time, and they resorted to superkick after superkick after superkick. Jimmy tried to plead with his brother to show leniency, and the crowd pleaded with the two to just end the 11-minute match and forget the whole thing ever even happened. And yet, the night after, they produced one of the spots of the weekend when Jey speared his brother off the ramp into tables during the main event. Let us know what you think of our list in the comments below, and tell us about some of the other worst moments of the year. On the screen now will be the Aussie Cousins Wrestling End of Year Awards. subscribe to the channel for more Aussie charm to your wrestling, and always hit that like button. And of course, we hope that you all have a wonderful day.